to mug you. What? What if your government tries to throw you in a can? What? You're gonna want a shotgun. Oh. What? An automatic rifle. And a lot of ammo. Gun? Yeah, gun.
We're all set to riot. Buy a gun. Before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They'll burn you out like a Waco. They'll stick your ass in a camp. Jackbooted cops in riot gear. Gonna kick your ass and laugh. The revolution is on its way. Better lock and load your AK. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun. Before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun. Before you wish you bought a gun. We're all set to riot. Buy a gun. Before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They gave your money to the banksters. They stole your pension fund. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun. Before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun. Before you wish you bought a gun. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta drag them through the streets.
Riots have been suppressed. This is PrimerTime, and we are live. It is Tuesday. My name is Michael.
And I'm Nick, and thank goodness there is no more rioting in the streets.
Peace and order and quietness have been restored. Thank our overly funded law enforcement.
Oh, man. Just can't get by without a couple riots a month. You know what I mean?
It's really until the rioters burn a bank and burn a tax office, it's just an opportunity to get free shit.
Yeah.
So,
But like I said, you can't call them thugs because that's racially profiling and that's discriminatory.
Absolutely. Another twist in the language.
Yeah.
Welcome to Newspeak. Welcome to the Newspeak.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that Melissa Harris Perry called the three black officers. She said they were white African Americans. I thought that was fairly interesting.
Wow. Are they
really
from,
pushing?
Are they from like South Africa and they lived under F.W. de Klerk or what?
No, they didn't appear to be of that racial background. No, they appeared to be what we would commonly refer to as black. Yeah. Fairly interesting. Fairly interesting.
It's interesting that Melissa Harris Perry has any opportunity to say anything, considering how far in arrears she is for taxes.
Oh, that appears to be an MSNBC hallmark. You get an anchor position, and then you also get to be $12 million behind in taxes, and nothing will happen.
Yeah. I tell you what, I saw the news conference with Mayor Bill de Blasio out of New York City, calling for a national $15 an hour minimum wage. And speaking of other MSNBC hosts, the Reverend Al Sharpton was right behind him. How does this guy manage to get into Yeah. How does he manage to get into every press conference?
Well, because it's racist to not let him in, fool.
Jesus. I swear to God. The National Action Network, which is his front organization, or what we call a shakedown organization. It's funny because during the whole thing for the Ferguson riots, they wouldn't let anybody in there hold a protest sign unless it had their logo on it.
Oh yeah, it's business, it's marketing. There is no movement; it's all purely marketing.
Oh,
Hey, so. In line with Reverend Al and his race baiting in the past,
or FBI informants, we should say.
FBI, whichever one you want to harp on this time. George Zimmerman was involved in an altercation. Did you happen to see that?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it happened to be with a individual that he has had a previous run-in not too long ago, and apparently this guy's out for blood, wants to kill him.
Apparently, Zimmerman was armed with a Glock 19,
Oh,
and
the evil black pistol.
well, it was to counter his opponent's two pistols, which he had a Glock 23 and 40 caliber and a Ruger 357, and he fired one round from the 357. And looking at the placement in the window, he was shooting at his head.
Yeah, but it sounds like he didn't receive anything other than a couple of scratches from some broken glass.
Broken glass and probably a lump in his shorts.
Bring me my brown pants.
My brown trousers now.
Yes.
I find it interesting that he keeps popping up in the news, and I have a feeling that he's going to continue to pop up in the news until he pops up in an obituary.
Yeah, I think that's the one. As far as the race baiters go, that's the one that got away. That was the big fish, and they couldn't get him.
Well, interestingly enough, the guy who shot at him today is a white fellow, and not like a white Hispanic as they portray the Peruvian Jewish George Zimmerman, but this guy is waspy looking in his photo. So I find it to be really interesting, and something else I find to be interesting from, well, a guy who's got to live under constant awareness. He's always at threat level 0, or what's one step above threat level Bravo?
You're probably going to have threat level Charlie in terms of like more severe, or are you talking less severe?
So he's always living at threat level Charlie, and they showed a picture of his truck being towed, and it's one of the Honda Ridgeline pickups, which I found to be kind of interesting, considering he's been arrested before, and they've showed his truck, which was a Honda Ridgeline back then. It's the same truck, and I think somebody who's moving around as much as he is, because he's not staying in one area, and I find it interesting that he keeps the same vehicle.
Yeah, and he's not in a rural area. He's in Lake Mary, Florida, which is outside of Orlando, and he's not going very, very far. So his trial was from Sanford, Florida. So I'll tell you what, there is such a thing as starting over, and maybe even trying to keep a low profile.
Time and distance. I would definitely move out of there. I mean, I don't believe you've got anything to prove at that point.
No, and I think that what he is he's letting himself become an easy mark for somebody who just wants to make their name. That's all it is.
I wish him the best of luck. I mean, he's not my favorite person or anything. I think the whole thing has gone poorly and has been a media fiasco. But the guy he was assaulted, and he did use his pistol to defend himself. And unfortunately, due to the major media input, he was branded a racist and all sorts of evil things, Dan.
Yeah, but I mean, wasn't it Nancy Grace that gave him that moniker, and she was the one with the?
I'll tell you what. She said that he called Trayvon a coon, COON, and well, I live in a fairly rural area, and there are several. I mean, there is a school that was a black-owned school at one time, not too far away from here. And the only people I ever hear say that word would be like the 80-year-old guys who still tip 36 cents at the coffee at any restaurant and sit there and drink 4 cups of coffee over 6 hours.
And they still call Brazil nuts by another name.
Right. And that's not really the hip young jargon.
No, and speaking of the hip young jargon, I don't know if anybody was watching the coverage of the latest riots in Baltimore, but there was a provocateur, I'll say, who was in the crowd. He was significantly more fairer skinned than the surrounding individuals there in Baltimore. And yeah, he was probably very Irish. So I thought it for a second. I was like, you know what? never let a crisis go to waste. You know what? It's so laughable to me that the individual himself was wearing about 42 pieces of flair, so he could have worked at Tchotchkes if I didn't know any better.
You know, the flair you have at a riot, well, the more rocks you get to throw, because more of your viewpoints are being, trespassed upon. Well, that's each one of those viewpoints being trespassed upon is a triggering event,
Yeah.
and it's, they just need a place to destroy.
Well, and you have the mayor who's walking back her statements, saying that she never said that. Never mind the fact that she has, been quoted on audio, and yeah, the whole thing to me is it's laughable, from the state's attorney to the mayor to the legislators who have given the police in Baltimore the authority to conduct the law enforcement operations the way they've been doing it for the past 50 years. At what point do people take a step back and say, you know what, this is what we voted for. This is what we wanted. We wanted this because we put these people in power and we kept them in power.
That's almost like taking responsibility for your actions.
Oh, damn it. I knew I was doing something wrong.
We'll have none of that.
Yeah.
That's
I got a question for you, Michael. I wonder why I don't see riots in Canada. They've got a sizable population of folks that meet the minority definition,
Why? I believe it's because they are not spending their country's wealth on bombing the hell out of other countries, and there's significant social programs in Canada, and programs that are not necessarily aimed at keeping people down, but improving people's lives. And I truly think that the base cause of the riots in the United States, which would be a complete opposite to the riots in Canada, would be the fact that, there's free shit here, but it's free shit to keep you quiet for a little while. It's nothing that they spend a lot more money on their education system per student in Canada than we do in the United States. And I'm not saying that the amount of money is the overriding goal, but it appears to be better spent. A lot more of it is better spent in Canada. And there appears to be more of a genuine concern for the lower class of citizens. That's what I would say it is.
Yeah, but do they have African Canadians?
No, unless you're watching that one TV station in Windsor that did refer to African Canadians, African American Canadians is what they refer to them as. I thought that was fairly interesting.
Yeah, I don't ever remember hearing that.
Well, I heard it when I was in Canada.
Yeah, I did see that they had a sympathetic protest march, but it was like folks walk around saying, "Excuse me, pardon me, we'd like to walk through, please."
Yeah, but they've had some fairly serious protests in Canada in the past, and they, unlike American protests, they seem to be more representative of the community as a whole. It's not necessarily one ethnic group that appears to take part in them. And there have been some violent incidents at Canadian protests. The G20 meeting in Montreal a few years ago is a prime example of it. There were windows smashed, and of course the inevitable Ford Crown Victoria that is burning, or the old Aerostar police van. That they haven't made those things in 5-6
years. Yeah.
Both of them are older cars that probably didn't run all that well. Just get them to the spot and leave them there. We're going to burn them anyways.
Yeah. Gives us the right to do some civil asset forfeiture.
Well, we'll reclaim it through the tax system. But there's always agent provocateurs. There was I think it was in Quebec somewhere a few years ago. There was a very peaceful protest going on with people, in the very Canadian fashion, holding up a sign, on cardboard that says, "I am disturbed about this," or, the equivalent saying. And there were 3 guys that were dressed in black, the black baklavas and
they're getting. I was going to say they're getting Greek desserts on their head.
They have ink on their head. That's an identifier.
There you go.
Taliban do wear pastries upon their head. Anyhow, they were, covered up and dressed in black, and they were attempting to throw rocks and really start some unrest in the crowd. And the people around them said, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" And then they realized that these guys were all wearing the same boots as the officers across the way. And when they got exposed, they ran back, and of course the officers, surrounded them and like welcomed them back into the fold. But there is an amount of fire starting going on at these things. I don't think they're necessarily organic. And like I said before, the day they start knocking over banks and tax offices, I'll believe it's not funded by Soros and company. That's really how I see it. Now, let's take a look at Jalisco, Mexico. Are you aware of what's going on in Jalisco, Mexico?
No, thankfully enough, I'm far enough off the southern border where I don't have to worry about what's going on there anymore.
Hey, it may be a fairly interesting experience for you. Recently in Jalisco, Mexico, a new cartel has kind of sprung up from the headless corpses of the old cartels, and they're the new generation Jalisco cartel is what they're calling themselves. And they had a shootout with the Mexican police the other day, and
these are the federal police, or are these Jalisco state police?
This is the federal police.
Oh,
and
those federales.
Federales in the pickup trucks and the helicopters and the whole nine yards. They were able to shoot down a helicopter using an RPG, which I'm almost positive came from a wall somewhere in El Paso that they sneaked across the border because American gun laws are lax. Yeah. So they used an RPG to shoot down a police helicopter. They killed or wounded 23 federal police soldiers, or I guess they're federal police soldiers. And they didn't hit any private companies or citizens other than a bus company that they stole 36 buses to make barricades on the highway with, which they promptly torched. But, they're insured, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The interesting thing, and I believe this is why we're not hearing about any of this in the United States, is because that cartel, the new Jalisco cartel, the new generation Jalisco cartel, they hit every gas station in town and set it on fire. And in Mexico, that's a big deal because every gas station is Pemex, which is owned by the Mexican government.
Yeah, that's not like you're going and knocking over an Exxon franchise.
You're not knocking over a Habibi's Exxon. Absolutely not. No, this is an affront against the government. And they also hit 12 banks and torched them, and then hit every ATM machine in the town and cut them open and took all the cash out of them. So that's a real protest.
Yeah, and it's amazing though that you would figure that the folks that are I think from the Baltimore riots, they knocked over a couple of gun stores right off the bat, and they broke in and they took quite a few firearms out. But
I'm going to ask, why would the proprietor of a gun store, not knowing that the riots are coming, doing everything he can to secure his firearms and what he cannot secure, and his legal right as a citizen, why would he not defend it?
Well, see, that's the thing. You got to look at the laws in Maryland. Maryland is for firearms owners. Maryland is like a wasteland, and you'll notice that there was not a whole lot of folks who were willing to stand up and protect their property.
That's what I think would put a real big halt to the shopping festival. Is the guy whose store gets broken into, boom, a load of double-aught buck into that first guy that breaks in, and then boom, a load into the second guy, and then boom, a load into the third guy, and then you may have to reload at some point.
Yeah, but that's hopefully when you get a couple of your friends over, and you got somebody who's in the back continuously reloading and passing them forward like they did in the Revolution.
You had a guy with a gun shop was able to get a few items that were maybe a little more useful than a 3-shot 28-inch barreled 20-gauge shotgun.
Yeah.
At
Well,
that point, I think an AR-15 with a 3-round magazine, or an AK-47 with a 3-round magazine would be a very, very handy item for home defense or business defense.
oh, certainly, and look and see if anybody in that business who might have had a modicum of military training or understands the value of taking high ground. To be able to sit up above the building and make sure that you kind of clear the dead zones,
So you can bring two very important factors in the defense. One is the numbers in your defense, because more numbers are better.
Well, yeah, typically for
more nuts behind
any kind of engagement that a military force gets itself into, and this is proven long throughout history of warfare, is you need about a 3-to-1 ratio when you're in the attack. So, a defending force is going to be able to withstand and really tie up an attacking force if it doesn't have that numerical superiority. It can be hours, it can be days, it can be enough until somebody comes in to show up and pull some support. So you gotta look at, when it comes down to things like riots. You and I lived through the Los Angeles riots. We got to see that, and we were living at the time not very far away from some of those places that got turned over.
I don't know if you remember, but when that happened, I was put on alert.
Yeah.
I was working for the ambulance company at the time. We got all through our handy dandy alpha pagers. Yeah, we all got a message that be ready to respond.
Yeah, and and I think some of the other places we've been, any time that there's the odd NCAA championship that the entire town supports the team, somebody's going to go out there and start a riot when their team either wins.
When I moved in Tucson, there was I think we were eliminated, or the Wildcats were eliminated, and I think they got number 3, the Final Four, and they tore up the Barsh area, 4th and 6th Avenue, and I took a walk down there the next day, and it was pretty torn up. A couple of bars had been burnt down. There was broken glass everywhere.
And as a matter of fact, one of the Tucson Police Department sergeants was involved in a shooting of a less lethal round that actually killed an individual.
Right. There were they talk about the rubber stun baton, which is, they say, oh, it's rubber pellets. Well, it's rubber pellets that are basically rubber covering over lead.
Right.
And yeah, they may not have the penetration they will in soft tissue, but they hit like a damn sledgehammer. They're fairly lethal.
Right. And you hit somebody in the face with one of those, and it's lights out.
Right. Yeah, and that's happened before. I believe there were some riots. I can't remember the city. Would have been on the East Coast, and a lady was shot in the eye with a less lethal round. I don't remember what it was discharged from, but it penetrated her eye socket and into her brain, and 3 days in a coma and on a vent and everything, and then no more protester.
Yeah.
Of course the cops high-fived afterwards, and chest bumped, and way to go, good way to shoot that woman wearing with a sign. Yeah, right. She was dangerous. Yeah, I think it's pretty apparent that there's an issue with the police.
Yeah. Well, speaking of some loosely related, firearms drama, you seen the Boston bomber is finishing up his penalty phase of his trial.
Yeah, what's he gonna get? Is he gonna get life in jail?
Well, right now, since this is a case where there's grievous evidence, intent to do harm, he is up for the death penalty. He was found guilty on all 30 charges that they charged him with. But in the I'm glad I'm not a Catholic file anymore, there is a nun who is going back and talking to this guy. Apparently she's talked to him 5 times and said that he's totally repentant, and that he was just under the influence of his brother, and he's really changed. And I think this is my Ronald Reagan moment, where I didn't leave the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church left me. when we have an institution that is not paying any federal taxes, but yet seems to want to force itself into every type of government situation it can find, whether it be
That sounds like the NFL.
yeah, exactly.
Seriously, that sounds like the NFL.
Exactly. And here you go having the NFL, they're going to go ahead and start paying taxes. They revoke their own tax exempt status, but you have a member of the church who's being touted as a anti-death penalty advocate. At some point, she's not ministering, she's not trying to serve and love the Lord, but she's out there forcing an agenda. And to me, this is insane. I honestly, I can't understand how anybody in this day and age will go ahead and continue to go sit through church and listen to the ramblings of lunatics like that. Couldn't understand it for the least.
I believe that my boy Napoleon said it the best. Napoleon Bonaparte. Shout out from my homie. He said that religion is there so the poor do not rise up and murder the rich. And I truly believe that. He's absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't have a problem with somebody having their own beliefs. You have your own beliefs, just don't involve me in it. And number
Right.
two, if you're an advocate of a religion and you are treading that fine line of espousing an agenda, you got to be aware that you're
Espousing and evangelizing.
there. You go. There you go.
Right. Well,
So-
listen, the way I see it is your religion is like your penis, and this may be a little bit crude, but it's very accurate. Right? It's very much representative of that. It's good you have one, and you should be very, very proud of it. But do not try to dangle it about, in public, or try to shove it down my throat, because there will be problems.
Yeah, that's in the I don't want to think about file.
I mean, that's the way I see it. But also, I don't know if you saw, but Fidel Castro had a meeting with the Pope and had some glowing things to say about the Pope.
Yeah,
glowing
not
enough,
only
fairly
that.
shocking to me. He said that he may return to the church. That
Yeah,
he
but
likes.
I don't believe that was Fidel. I believe that was Raul.
Well, whatever. Whoever said it.
Yeah, and considering Raul's daughter is the chief advocate for the homosexual population of Havana, yet another reason why I'm not Catholic.
Havana Pride.
Yeah,
Havana
exactly.
Pride.
So
Just you wait. You people are going to get reruns of the nanny. Wait until they get reruns of the nanny in Espanol.
Oh, ay Dios mío. For my Hispanic amigos.
For all my Latino brothers out there.
Yes.
Oh, Jesus.
Complete with accurate accent.
Well, I'll tell you what. To the people in Jalisco, Mexico, stay safe. You guys are probably under explosive conditions right now because the army has shown up in Jalisco. So I find it really interesting. There was no mention of the Mexican situation in the United States news, and Bradygate, and Tom Brady got suspended or something.
Yeah, sure did. Well, let's talk about that because I'm absolutely not a fan of the New England Patriots. Speaking of, they've been being owned by the Denver Broncos since 1960. This is just another step in the long line of ways that they like to cheat. So, I can't think of another team that has had a rule instituted for this same quarterback, otherwise known as the Tuck rule. Can't think of another team that has gone as far as to plow a field during a snow game so that they can win. The whole videotaping thing was created by them. And, when you have a coach who's been fined $500,000, lost draft picks, and his protege, Josh McDaniels, got fined for doing the same things and tossed out of Denver, I think this is a plant. I think that this is a dedicated plan to ruin American football.
You have to look. Well, what was Stalin's quote about how to ruin the United States? That was an interesting item, and football is ingrained in the culture of American, in the culture of the United States. I mean, it could be, if it was older, it'd be the religion.
Yeah, Well, you got to figure, you just need better PR, and you need more celebrities to sign on to it. Because you got to figure, you've got the you've got the Church of Scientology, and they got Tom Cruise and they got John Travolta. I think they even have Greta Van Susteren too. So you get yourself a couple of well-placed celebrities, and you got yourself a religion.
Well, here's the Stalin quote. It's America is like a healthy body, and its resistance is threefold: its patriotism, its morality, and its spiritual life. If we can undermine these three areas, America will collapse within.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, you're starting to see that.
So, yeah. So, let's talk about that Lil Wayne video.
Yeah. Turned down for what?
No.
That's a shout out to my buddy Chris.
Just keeping it at Daquan, why you put that there? Daquan, why you put that there? That's not where it goes, Daquan.
In the I thought that's where I parked my car department.
You got that story up?
Actually, I read it and I kind of put it away. But basically, we have a story tonight of Darquan. Darquan Lee out of Miami, Florida, decided to go ahead and go to lockup while attempting to conceal a pistol in his anal cavity, and then decided to produce said pistol during a strip search. So what color?
I would believe to be at the part where he said, "Turn your head and cough."
Yeah, I was gonna make a joke of that and say, "What color was that pistol?" And if you said, "I don't know," I would have said it was a dark one.
That's bad. That's bad. That was bad. Yeah.
If it was stainless, it isn't anymore.
No, it's not. Well, it is interesting that the gun was stolen, and it appears to be a Raven 25 automatic, 25 ACP, and how do you, if you're the previous owner, the guy it was stolen from, are you happy you got it back?
Yeah.
It's a $79 gun that's been jammed up some dude's ass.
At least it wasn't his ass,
Yeah, I find this to be just almost. I don't know if I can believe the story because, well, that's just an uncomfortable place to put. I mean, unless the guy's got a lot of room in his prison wallet, so to speak.
Oof. I tell you what. It's funny. We talked about, the lack of news media being generated out there this week about firearms in the news and the use of firearms in the news. It's kind of been a slow week. You know what I mean?
Well, there's not really been a whole lot of firearms news recently, and to be honest with you, I think it's there's been some overkill with firearms in the news. There's a lot of fear mongering that people are seeing through. I mean, look at Moms Against Everything. There's a protest on at every opportunity from them. I think people see through it, and I mean, there's been some recent polls released that show that like 68% of Americans don't believe in any further gun control.
Yeah, and it's funny because you get De Blasio and you get the other mayors against illegal gun guys like Bloomberg. They'll tell you they'll dazzle you with statistics every time, and they'll tell you that support for gun registration is up, support for more laws and more ordinances curbing the rights to own firearms is up. So it's one of those things that if it comes out and it's against anybody maintaining their Second Amendment rights, it's going to be on MSNBC first. And speaking of MSNBC, I haven't seen Rachel Maddow on there lately. Is she still even on there drawing poor ratings? Or
I would believe she's still on there because I mean it'd be an insult to the snarky Yankee crowd to have her on. To be honest with you.
Yeah, well, but she's like the old guard. She's the old white lesbian. She's not fitting into the new crowd, and the new crowd over there seems to be dark African American and with some tax problems.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd like to know what percentage of the delinquent tax rolls MSNBC employees are. I'm sure it's a significant percentage, like probably 2-3%.
Yeah. Well, I mean, can they even really be called a media outlet, considering all they do is espouse the agenda of the administration? I mean, they have their own progressive socialist. They have their own motto
Well,
constantly
I would
flashing on the
almost think,
screen.
yeah. What is it? Move forward. That's their motto, which
Lean
is
forward.
lean forward, lean forward.
Yeah, because
That's
move
right.
forward would be too closely aligned with Michelle Obama's "Get Up and Move" campaign.
Right, right. Well, in lean forward, comrade,
Yeah.
always forward, comrade. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
well, along those
Das
lines,
ist Pravda. Yeah.
yeah, it's pravda, it's truth. Bloomberg's group, Every Town for Gun Safety, they refused to have a debate on air on C-SPAN, which promised to be a fairly evenly moderated debate if C-SPAN's history holds up. They refused to have a debate with firearms researcher John Lott. And I don't know if you've ever seen any videos with John Lott, but there's no getting around logic. He might have the best position, but his facts are solid. And they meet with him. He has a habit of destroying everybody who can't speak over him.
Right.
And well, Every Town for Gun Safety is saying that he's really not qualified, and his theories are crackpot.
Oh, you just go ahead and you do the ad hominem attack to try and distract from the issue, and you try to discredit your opponent without giving any facts. So that's just a page from the playbook.
Well, it's a page to destroy the Second Amendment, because as we know that the Second Amendment is guaranteed for your shooting sports safety, right? So you can duck hunt, and you really don't need a 30-round magazine to hunt deer, right?
Says who? What if you got 30 deer and you got 30 tags?
There's 30 deadly deer coming in.
You know what? I hear them deers are moose limbs.
Moose limbs, and they fry up like backstrap.
Yeah, that's one of those things that just says anybody that likes to do something that I know when I get that argument. Well, what do you need? What do you need a 30-round magazine for? Well, because I don't like 29-round magazines. I need a 30-round magazine.
I like even numbers.
Yeah, and further, when you take it a step, and they have something that they like. Well, why do you need a $50,000 bass boat? Well,
why do you need a car that goes over 75? I mean, the speed limit is 75.
Exactly.
What are you planning to?
Yeah. Are you with them terrorists? Bin Laden drove over 75.
Bin Laden was a noted speed demon and an anti-Semite.
There you go. Think of the children.
I believe he played Blue Oyster Cult at full blast.
Yeah. Don't fear the Reaper, my friend.
Okay, so I want to bring this up. The market is drying up in the used gun. The selection is drying up, and if it is available, it's completely overpriced, and nobody's moving on price, which I think is very indicative of the nation's economy.
Yeah, I agree 100%. In my local online gun forums, I am seeing the same exact firearms being offered for the same exact price and to the top or back up for 6 and 7 pages worth. I mean, at some point, price will sell. And if it doesn't sell after 7 pages worth of bumps, then chances are you're asking for too much, guys.
I'm noticing that Glocks do not have their mystique any further. Nobody's paying $500 for a used Glock anymore.
But that's not to say that that's not what the asking price is.
Oh, the asking price is usually $550.
Yeah, right off the bat with 2 magazines, any Glock will be the seller will be asking for at least $500.
$500 is usually what it is. Now that's not selling anymore. Now you price that Glock at $400 and it may move.
Yeah, it may, but that's the thing.
I don't think that the economy is supporting any kind of expenditures right now.
Yeah, and that's one of the other things. I have not seen, as opposed to this summer when I saw a lot of the Kel-Tec shotguns, I haven't seen one offered for sale in quite a while. So I don't know if that's a
You
result
know,
of the poor mechanics of the design, or if that's just that people figure out they got took.
it may be a result of Kel-Tec's poor product management system. Because honestly, uh, I saw one of those Kel-Tec shotguns like in person. Oh, it was maybe a month after they were announced, and there was a guy walking around a show, and this was at the height of the scare, and he was offered to trade a Remington 870, an AR-15 of some design that was mil spec, and a brand new Beretta 92, and he turned it down. Now, currently, Kel-Tec shotgun is 899, 799, something like that, and you could not get into a AR-15 Beretta 92 FS and a Remington shotgun for $800. There's no possible way.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like I said, I'm taking a look at the gun trader in my area and the combo rifle shotgun category. It is the same four offerings that have been viewed over 800 times, and things haven't moved. So
That's almost like the definition of insanity, right?
that
You
is.
keep on looking at something, expect change.
Yeah, and speaking of, you talked a while back about the latest trend, which was, I'm selling tickets for my auction on my gun. Right
Yeah.
now, what I'm seeing a lot of is that people are trying to capitalize on the word banned. And anything that says the word banned in it automatically generates at least 200 more views.
Well, and also necessitates a $200 bump in price.
Yeah, naturally. So I saw an ad for Russian Bakelite magazines, and they put banned in there, and I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, okay, guys, all right. At some point,
Yeah, the fear mongering ends.
yeah,
People are going to realize that the AR-15 that they paid $1,400 for in April of 2013 is not actually worth that.
yeah.
And
I
no
mean,
matter how it's
and honestly,
banned or
if you're paying
how great it
for a
is,
complete AR-15 and you're spending more than $600 or $700 on it, obviously you're either doing it because you want to have a brand name, or you're doing it because you are too lazy to go out and build your own.
oh, maybe it does take a modicum of mechanical talent to put one together. And I mean, there
Actually,
is the
I
you
would
have
just
to watch
lightly
20
disagree with you and say it
YouTube.
takes a modicum of being able to use YouTube.
Well, and you got to figure out which end of the hammer is sharp.
Apparently, you need to learn how to locate a punch set.
Yeah, yeah. Not just any old screwdriver will work.
Yeah. And this is I think we've talked about it time and time again. We've had the demasculinization of the American male going on for quite some time. Look at the Metro trend, or the guy who weighs about 120 pounds soaking wet, wearing lumberjack plaid with a beard. Yeah, you're not fooling anybody, guy. You're not going to be
You're just
working
tall,
in a lumber camp next week.
you're just a tall Keebler elf, is what you are.
That's it. That's it. But it doesn't take anything to put one of those together. It takes no special training. It takes an ability to follow step by step instructions, and you know, some people
You have to
deserve
know how
what
to
they
use
get.
some hand tools, and such as pliers or the aforementioned punch presses. You know,
Yeah,
uh,
I think the the most important piece of a tool set for being able to put together an AR-15 lower receiver is the it's unfortunate, but it is for the takedown pins. There's a special pin and detent that if you don't go ahead and lock that down, because it will be held in with tension by a spring. If you miss that thing, you'll never find it because it'll launch across the room.
yeah. So I mean, there is a little bit of that to be aware of, and that's available in the video. So really, you really shouldn't spend any more than $700 on a brand new AR.
Exactly, I agree. And like I
Unless you're
said,
getting some tier one salient arms, blah blah blah, with titanium, yada yada yada. But then you're just paying for a spoiler on your Honda.
yeah, that's it. So, it's just interesting to me because you'll see from time to time in my area, like I said in the past, this is not a rifle market. This is a shotgun market, and that's mostly because we do have some restrictions on the county where I live, and that may not be the same in other locations, but you go anywhere in Texas, a good rifle with a scope on it, you can sell that for about $400 sight unseen.
Yeah, pretty much. That's about it. About $400. Yeah, yeah. You can get rid of that Mossberg ATR with a Simmons scope on it. Yeah, you're
Yep.
getting about 450
Yeah.
right there.
So
Hey, yeah. So let me change it up and something we haven't discussed on here before. How do you feel about body armor?
honestly, I got mixed feelings on it because number one, if you feel you're at a point where you need body armor, you're probably doing something wrong. Uh, Number two, if you live in an area where you need body armor, you should probably consider moving. Number three, um, if you're dealing with anybody who's really handy with a firearm and you use body armor, they're probably going to shoot you in the face. So, yeah, body armor is decent for law enforcement folks. Maybe for those guys who are riding the Brinks truck, delivering cash to the ATMs. For the average individual, probably not really going to be able to get much value out of it. Certainly, if they're trying to wear anything like what the military wears with the IOTVs and the body armor, this is the improved outer
Yeah,
tactical
what are
vest.
IoT?
Right, this is the
What's an
improved outer
IoT?
tactical. I'm sorry, outer tactical vest. So, anything with the side plates, the shoulder, the DAPs, what we call them, the front chest plates, the back plates. These are
Groin
improved.
plate.
Yeah, well, and the growing
You
plate is just a flap. It's for fragmentation. It's not really designed to stop anything. But those plates are designed to stop 7.62. We frequently have recalls on them. So if you go out and you buy something on eBay that was pilfered from an army depot somewhere, chances are you got a bad deal because those plates get recalled all the time for not being able to stand up under testing conditions.
Well, and then they also have like serious problems with fall. It may have stopped the bullet, but there's going to be metal that breaks off the back of that plate and
Yeah, you'll get some
pierces through.
small and not only that, the plate itself may be able to crack, and while it may not penetrate through the vest itself, it's gonna leave a hurting on you. I'll tell you what.
Yeah. Now, there, life is changing in the United States, and I'm not trying to, be a fearmonger or anything, but if you were stuck in, let's say, the Baltimore type riots, uh, do you feel that having the body armor would be an advantage? I personally think it would be. I've
Well,
got no,
it
particular
depends on the
preference in body
situation.
armor.
I think it depends on the situation. If you're gonna sit outside on the stoop and wait for some trouble, yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe give you a little bit of peace of mind. Me personally, I like to sit back behind the scenes and just pull the trigger for the odd guy that wants to try and come in and get something that's not his. So therefore, I really don't think I need them because I know how to set up a defensive position.
Right. Well, I mean, for the average guy who doesn't know that, it may be worth the peace of mind to spend the $500 on an NIJA level 3 vest that stops all handgun rounds.
Yeah, but then you got to take into account, wasn't there some legislation that was recently passed that outlawed civilians purchasing body armor in some jurisdictions?
I believe it. I don't know if it was passed or not. I know it was introduced.
Yeah, it was proposed. So that's one thing you got to kind of take a look at is to see, number one, what's authorized or what's allowable in your jurisdiction. Because heck, going out there and buying it, you may buying it from somebody who's a criminal to begin with. Secondly, it may not be legal to own in your area.
And if you're buying something used, you almost have to be aware of the date because these items have a lifespan to them.
Well, not only that, they have that lot number that's attached to them that's written right there with the date of manufacture. And I would say that the lot number is even more important because that's how you can track what needs to be recalled.
Well, and then there's also expiration dates. I know that I was issued a vest a while back and was given the option to purchase it. And I know that my vest had a 10-year lifespan if kept, between certain temperature ranges, which of course it was always 20 degrees above that in Arizona.
And not dropped.
This one it didn't have any sort of hard plate in it. It was just level 3. So it was 36 layers of Kevlar or something like that. Yeah. And it was more about the heat and UV exposure is really what the concerns for that were. But I ended up selling it for $100 more than I bought it for. Of course, I got it super cheap at $100, back when it was brand new. I'd been the only one who wore it.
Yeah, I mean, get what you can get for it if you got it. We used to get issued the old Vietnam era chicken vests, and that's what we used to call you, because if you wore it, you were a chicken. Well,
I'll tell you what, those are, as of 2000, a lot of those were in really, really poor shape, because the company I worked for at that time gave us some for the millennium, for the Y2K turnover, and there was a great big scramble to get us actual ones that functioned, because they had been stored in a Connex in the desert and they were falling apart.
Oh yeah, that stuff does fall apart. Well, Michael, I think we need to hit the 4 rules of firearm safety.
All right. First rule is every firearm is loaded until you visually and physically make sure that it is not loaded. Rule number 2 is keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction at all times. Don't cover anything you don't wish to destroy. Rule number 3 is know what your target is and know what is beyond your target at all times. And rule number 4, the most important rule, is keep the booger hook off the bang switch. Do not place your finger on the trigger until you are ready to discharge the weapon. Accidents cannot happen unless you pull the trigger.
That's right. So, it's one of those things that we look at every week, and we look forward to, hopefully this weekend I'll get a chance to finally do the final assembly of the 300 Blackout. We're looking at maybe getting a good friend of the show back on here to talk about the M1A and give us a range report. And then also just hope to get the shooting weather to stick around. We had some pretty good weather the last couple of days. We do get some rain at night, but it's like today it was real windy, but lots of sun and maybe a couple clouds. But it's getting to be that time of year where we need to see people start getting out to the range.
I was able to get out and fire a couple rounds with a good friend of mine the other day, and it gave me a little bit of appreciation for the 32 ACP, and maybe we'll talk about that a little bit next week.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It's a smaller caliber, and to be honest with you, the ammo is a little bit expensive, but I mean it creates a very, very small envelope for a decent amount of power, and I guess in the land of self-defense, bigger is better.
Oh yeah.
And you're not really giving up a whole lot of magazine capacity in it was a Beretta 30-32 Tomcat, and it's still pretty small, like a Beretta 21, just a little bit larger, and I think it held 7 or 8 rounds of 32. And
well, you gotta figure that 32 caliber is right there at that 8mm. So you're gonna put a hole in somebody
or something.
Yeah,
it's 7.65, and I'll tell you, it's a cute little round. It really is a cute little round. It's like miniature 9mm.
Yeah. Well, and then with that, I was able to get some reloading done this past week. Even was able to have my daughter build her first 8mm Mauser round.
How did she like doing that?
She thought it was actually pretty cool. From the process of taking the once fired brass, cleaning it out, setting it up on the chuck on the drill, and then making sure that it was sized appropriately and that the case length matched the gauge. She went ahead and primed it, made sure that she had the appropriate measure of the appropriate powder, and then ran it over to the press and seated a bullet. She was pretty excited with it.
That's really cool. So when is she going to get to go out and fire it?
Yeah, that's for another time.
Well, just like Joe Biden said, just go off your balcony and fire 2 rounds in the air.
Yeah, just buy a shotgun.
Buy a shotgun.
Yeah, speaking of buy a shotgun, you notice that he's been decidedly quiet on whether or not he's going to go ahead and run for president.
They've muzzled him in case he does something stupid.
Which is just about every time he opens his mouth.
Well, I did see something fairly interesting that he did come out with some support for Hillary, and then he was promptly muzzled again.
Really? Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. It's starting to look like she's not willing to really talk. There's been some news stories out there on Drudge and a couple of other news reports that said she hasn't really answered any questions about 20-something days. So with these strings.
Something about.
She's going to say these have a string of reports that have come out that are pretty damning when it takes a look at that the ability of Bill Clinton to get some deals done in areas where as Secretary of State she went ahead and got some stuff taken care of for him.
It is so inappropriate, isn't it? And to be honest with you, she just deleted the emails that weren't important.
Yeah. Well, just like the IRS couldn't find the Lois Lerner emails, right?
When your dog eats your hard drive, man, what are you supposed to do?
I know. Think of the puppies.
Think of the puppies and the children, and 6 million children and puppies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I believe that number is under copyright infringement protection.
I'm sorry, I used the wrong number. I've got a sinking feeling that there's no fixing this.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, put it this way: Jade Helm is going on. Nobody is invading Texas, and Bastrop County is still Bastrop County. Last I saw. So
I'll tell you what: the two that are near me, the Victoria and Goliad exercises, those have been canceled and actually moved to the former sheriff of Victoria's luscious 3,200-acre ranch.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be public. Now it's going to be on
private land.
On whatever. Yeah, the former sheriff's land. So
yeah,
be interesting.
I think, like I said, I think that these types of exercises, while its value to me is really negligible. They go on quite frequently. Anybody who lives in Houston remembered the helicopter swooping in. I think
done it in Tampa. They do it all the time. I mean, there's a series of these exercises. There's Jade Helm. There's Robin Sage. There's what
Robin
other one
Sage
is there?
Actually doesn't go on anymore. Robin Sage was the final portion of the Special Forces qualification course, and they had a death in that training event a few years back, and they actually canceled that name. So. But there are quite a few military exercises that do interact with local and civilian law enforcement as well as first responders. Anybody who's been a member of the United States Army Reserves knows how frequently that occurs. So, like I said, yeah, I think that there are other things to lose sleep over. I'm not going to say that.
I would dare say that if they were planning on invading like the entire Southwest and South Central area. I don't think they'd announce it.
Yeah, I don't think so. It would kind of be like the native Hawaiians who want to go ahead and establish domain over the state and say, oh yeah, by the way, this is the Kingdom of Hawaii. Well, guess what? You've got a Marine Corps base, an Air Force base, a Navy base, and a Federal Army base on your island chain. Yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to do much about that.
I want to know how the Kingdom of Hawaii, are they armed? Do they own any weapons of mass destruction?
Well, yeah. If you've ever had pork lau, that'll do some damage.
I stick to Spam.
Yeah, well, so do they. And Spam sticks to everything that you put it on.
I'm not necessarily a fan of Spam, but maybe a couple times a year, and it has to be done right. None of that just eat it out of the can shit.
Yeah.
It's not Mad Max yet.
Yeah. Well, Michael, I want to say a good thanks to our listeners out there keeping up in chat. Thanks to my buddy Chris out there for checking up on me this week. And Michael, it's good to talk to you.
I want to say thanks for being on. I want to give a shout out to ECY, a platform for everybody to have a voice. And I'd like to just say I miss my country, man. I miss my country.
Where did it go?
Really, where did it go? I miss my country. All right, everybody stick around. Lots more entertainment on UCY tonight. Anti-media coming up in 1 hour. Live radio rocks. Gentlemen, take it easy.